The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Wednesday, the 17th of February, 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,207.60 an ounce, silver $15.29 an ounce, Texas crude $29.04 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 419 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1776, the first volume of Edward Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire is published. The whole series traces the trajectory of Western civilization as well as the Islamic and Mongolian conquest from the height of the Roman Empire to the fall of the Eastern Byzantium. It was published in 6 volumes, and Volume 1 was hot off the presses today in history. In recent news, University of Texas in Austin President Greg Fenves submitted rules to comply with the state's new campus carry law today. Guns will be allowed in classrooms at the University of Texas in Austin in accordance with open carry legislation, however, apparently not in the dorms, except for a few exceptions. They would be allowed in common areas. Family members visiting the dorms would be allowed to carry them, and staff members who work in the dorms would also be allowed to have them. However, Attorney General Ken Paxton has argued that guns should be allowed in student housing as well. Campus carry has been one of the most controversial issues in this last year at colleges across the state. Opposition has been especially strong at UT Austin, where the faculty council passed numerous resolutions against allowing guns in the classrooms. Fenves' rules are likely to be challenged by both sides, and UT System Chancellor William H. McRaven predicted earlier this year that his school will be sued by people who think the guidelines are too strict or too lenient. The law goes into effect August 1st. According to federal prosecutors, investigators have so far discovered firearms, explosives, and trenches dug near an area containing tribal artifacts at the Oregon Wildlife Preserve, occupied by Citizens for Constitutional Freedom for nearly 6 weeks. FBI did not describe the types of firearms or explosives or say what led the investigators to think vehicles on the premises may have been booby-trapped. However, they provided this information in response to a motion from the defense lawyers who wanted immediate access to the site. Apparently, defense teams must be escorted by FBI personnel and mustn't disturb or remove any items, while all the evidence seized by the FBI will be available for inspection at the agency's field office in Portland. Defense lawyers, however, are challenging that arrangement, and a judge is expected to hear arguments on the matter next week. Attorneys for jailed Eamon Bundy said that they were concerned about the damages to the site that may have been done by the occupiers after he and other leaders were arrested. This was your lowdown for February 17th, 2016.
Good evening and welcome here on this Thursday evening, the 18th of February, 2016. It's time for INN World Report Radio here on the Great Logos Radio Network. My name is Tom Kiley, and I have the honor to bring this show to you on 2 nights a week here on Logos. That would be Tuesdays and Thursday nights. And again, living up to the international part of our name, we're going to be speaking with Gilad Atzmon momentarily. He is in London right now where he lives, and I thought I would have him come on and talk with us about a couple of different issues that he's been writing about lately, and one of them in particular that happened recently in the United Kingdom, which I think is very important. Apparently, the lawmakers in Great Britain have gotten so craven that they have, I don't know if they've either passed a law or they're considering passing a law or they're about to pass a law, which would ban people or at least organizations from boycotting Israeli goods and products and services. So the power of oligarchy continues to come out from behind the curtain and continues to grab power from the people wherever it can, unabated. Apparently, there seems to be no stopping it. I mean, there are the stirrings, I think, of a global revolution against this, but it certainly hasn't gotten that far yet. But here we have yet another example of your supposed democratic process being shown to be phony baloney nowadays, to have been eviscerated, to have no guts left to it. All right, and all over the so-called developed world in this country, I speak of it all the time. And if you want to know about it more, just send me an email, info@innradio.com. I would be happy to send you a link to the articles and the PDF that was made from these two professors, one at Northwestern and one at Princeton University, both very prestigious schools, who say there's no doubt about it anymore. The United States is being run by oligarchs. It's not the will of the people really makes practically no difference at all anymore. All right. And they have done a study on this, and they've got metrics, and they can show you by any number of ways why they say that. And it's not just here. It's over in other countries as well, in the United Kingdom. Can you imagine if you want to affect the world with your dollars that you're spending or not spending, your government is going to tell you now, no, I'm sorry, you can't not buy that stuff. Now, I doubt if they're talking about it on an individual level, but on an institutional level, colleges, pension funds, and that sort of thing, they invest in the stock market. They invest in companies. Many of them are global companies, and people are divesting. They're taking their money out of Israeli companies and they're putting it in other places. They don't want to spend money with companies that are based in the Zionist system. That's what they don't want to do that. And that's exactly what happened with South Africa, for instance, and it brought a lot of pressure to bear on that society. And heavens to Betsy, it was a factor. I don't know if it was the only factor. I don't know if it was the chief factor, but it was a significant factor, and maybe the chief factor. I don't know, but it was a big one in bringing about positive change in a very, very unfair society of South Africa. Well, obviously, they don't want that kind of positive change to happen in Palestine or Israel, occupied Palestine, whatever you want to call it. All right. They want to see the ability for that Zionist government to just trash the Palestinian people at will. All right. They don't want to see a positive change there. And it is a conundrum. If you're a regular listener to this show, you know that it is declaring itself the Jewish state. There's nothing democratic about that. It is not a democracy. If you are, when Jewish citizens are considered to be, more better than others, shall we say, and people don't like that. People feel bad for Palestinians, finally, and they're trying to act on it, and they're trying to divest and have their schools, and a lot of organizations, colleges are rising to the occasion, and they're saying we're pulling our money out. Now the parliament in the UK is passing a law that says, no, you can't do that. How about that? So, you can't get the people's will is not being respected at the ballot box. I don't know if you recall, but before the invasion of Iraq under what Donald Trump calls a lie of weapons of mass destruction, and I happen to think he's absolutely correct about that, the citizens of the UK wanted to influence their government, to show their government their great displeasure, and they had a march in London. I think there was 1 million people there. That's a lot of people. And I think they had 2 of them. We can ask our guest, Gilad, when he gets on with us in just a few moments. But no, they got the back of the hand. No, it makes no difference. It makes no difference if it's Tony Blair in the left-wing, so-called left-wing Labor government, or this guy Cameron now, John Major before him in the so-called right-wing. It makes no difference. And everywhere where the people have the opportunity to make a difference, it's being taken away from them. Now you can't write a letter. You could, if you could write a letter to your college and say, hey, listen, I'm a student at this college. I pay tuition. I'm a member in good standing. And I don't like the fact that in the college investment fund, you're invested in certain of these Israeli companies. I don't like that. And I want to see you divest from it, And that's apparently not allowed anymore. You're not allowed to apply that. You were allowed to apply it to South Africa. But no, the Zionist state apparently is special, okay, and is chosen, as we say. So that's where we're at. So I thought I'd have Gilad come on and talk about that with us. He's there in London at Ground Zero for this sort of thing. He posts it on his blog, which, if you don't take a look at it, you probably might, many of you, I'm sure will find it very interesting. It's gilad.uk.co, gilad.uk.co. And, he's got updates on there quite often. Sometimes he's got updates on there about his visits here to New York, where he's done a couple of different events with me now, where I've hosted him at a couple of different locations. So I'm sorry about the noise. Sorry, we're getting a little bit of a stir in the gravity field here right now, but it should be calming down momentarily now. And there that is. But anyhow, so I asked Gilad to come on. Now, there's another issue that is really starting to come to the fore more and more. And Gilad also writes about this sometimes, talks about this. And so I asked him if we could talk about this as well. And I'm talking about the I don't know how you would call it, but the transgender movement. Is that about the right way to say it? I say that with consternation because there seems to be a lot of different names for a lot of different things that come under the same rubric. I know that lesbian and gay issues have, expanded their umbrella to, it seems to grow all the time. And, I'm just trying to keep up with it. And transgender is part of it. But now it's being codified into law in different places. So it's really come to my attention even more. And I'm starting to, have to look into this thing. I'm discussing it with certain very, how shall I say, people that I respect that know somewhat more about this than I do anyway. And I'm coming up with some very, very interesting information. And I'm gonna speak with Gilad about it as well, but I'll just give you a little idea. It seems to me that what this movement is all about, and anyone call me and correct me if I'm wrong. Phone lines are open right now, 512-646-1984. That, boiled down to its very basic elements, the transgender movement apparently seeks to assert that the definition, the old definition of what constitutes a man or a woman or a man is no longer applicable. All right. And that at its most simplest, at its core, is your chromosomes that you were born with. And in the vast majority of the cases, the different reproductive organs that you were born with as well. There are very few exceptions where some people are born with a little bit of both maybe, or malformed or something, or partially formed. However, to my knowledge, people have one set of chromosomes or the other. Well, that used to be the way that we legally, socially, ethically, and so many other ways determined who was a man and who was a woman, who was a woman, who was a man. Well, that we're being told was wrong, and we're going to fix it. It has to be thrown out the window. And the determining factor should rather be, regardless of the chromosomes of a person, regardless of their physical body, regardless of their reproductive organs or lack thereof, okay, it is what the person feels they want to be. That is the determination that we are being told we must accept now between the difference between a woman and a man. And, that certainly calls a lot of things into question. On its face, it seems absurd, but I'm shocked at how far this whole thing has gone. Now, it seems to have, it seems to be based in the notion that, people who feel oppressed in this way, that they feel like they're in the wrong body, it's a great deal of suffering for them. And when they act on it, greater society has given them a hard time. And that's not right. We should have compassion for everybody, no question about it. But the solution being proposed is that everybody make believe that somebody is of a different sex, so that the whole world reflects back to these people what it is that they want to feel and want to be. And I got to tell you, it's causing issues, and with some surprising sectors of the population as well. We'll talk about that later on. Gilad Atzmon should be joining us right on the other side of this break. Tom Kiley, INN World Report Radio, back with you just after these messages that are coming right up for you.
Now.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Baby ambassador to England or France, may like to gamble, might like to dance, maybe the heavyweight champion of the world, but you got to serve somebody. Hey, you gotta serve somebody. Maybe the devil, maybe the Lord.
All right, Etta James doing Bob Dylan. You got to serve somebody, and that's what we try to do here 2 nights a week on the Great Logos Radio Network. We, meaning myself, the network tries to do that every day. So, and then here's a guy who tries to do that every day as well in several ways, not just in his interesting writings, philosophical inquiries, but also with a wonderful ability to play great music on the saxophone. I'm talking, of course, about Gilad Atzmon. Gilad, welcome back to INN.
Hey, I'm very happy to be with you.
And also, Gilad, I was telling everybody how now we've cooperated on at least a couple of ventures here in New York now, and I look forward to more in the future. And
but a lot of people watch the video. Have you noticed?
No, I haven't seen it in a while, but everybody, Gilad's last appearance here in New York was what, about a month ago now?
2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, and we got it on video, so I'll be happy to send it to you. It's also on his website, gilad.co.uk. Okay, and that's how you get there. So, Gilad, I asked you to come on. Do you know Christoph Lehmann, who runs NSNBC, the website?
No.
Yeah, he's really great. He's a German doctor. He lives in Denmark because of freedom of speech issues, and he was sending out information about this too. You were sending it out that I describe it as the continuing strangulation of the voice of the people by oligarchs, okay? They've eviscerated the electoral process, okay? There's no difference between the Labor Party and the Conservatives. There's no difference here between the Republicans and the Democrats.
By the way, there is a big difference between the Labor and the Tories here in this country, because the Labor claim to be radical, but there are more Tories than the Tories. At least the Tories claim to be Tories.
Right. That's what. But what I mean is, in the end result, there's a little different.
I was obviously cynical here. It's quite disappointing here because we had Corbyn,
who you were an early champion of.
Yeah. Obviously, I was already on your program. I differentiated between Corbyn the symbol and Corbyn the person. I was suspecting that he would fail to deliver. But this guy who, we were waiting for a radical left figure for 40 years. A lot of us were very excited. And we read in the Jewish press that he was begging to meet the Jewish lobby here, the BOD, the Board of Jewish Deputies, and he surrendered on every possible front. He told them that he supports their circumcision, which is basically a Jewish blood ritual, that in some cases, it's hard to figure out how many cases, what is the percentage, includes blood sucking. Why does a radical leftist have to subscribe to Jewish blood ritual? Big question. He went to the Jews and he told them that he supports their shchita, which is the Jewish butchery, which is sadistic beyond belief. The Islamic procedure is similar, yet it didn't go to the Muslims, who are kind of 5-6% of the population here. The Jews are less than 0.5%. It didn't go to the Muslims. Now, is he supporting ritual in general? Generally, he didn't go to the Somali community and told them that he supports a clitoral mutilation, which is apparently very popular within the Somali community here in Britain. He's obviously subscribing, to the most idiotic form of Jewish pressure. Today, I don't know if you heard about it in America. We have a story about Oxford University Labor Club. Their leader had to resign because he called the people in the club called some Jews in the campus. They called them Zayos. Yeah, can you believe it?
Hold on. Wait a minute. You're talking about Oxford University in England.
Oxford, for sure. Oxford University.
Okay.
It's one of the.
Right. I'm sorry. I thought you started out by saying you were talking about a school here in the States, and he referred.
No. Yeah, so I'm talking about the Labor Club within Oxford University. The leader of the club had to resign because they actually decided to join the Israel Apartheid Week. So a labor student in this country cannot join the Israeli Apartheid Week, which is basically a week where students delve into the apartheid measures in Israel. I, by the way, don't think that Israel is apartheid. it is way worse than apartheid. Apartheid is a racist system of exploitation. Israel is an ethnic cleanser. In principle, it's basically implementing some Hitlerian measures. Israel wants the Palestinian gone. It doesn't want to exploit them. The Labour Party here is one of its worst phase, and this is disappointing, especially because it is led by Jeremy Corbyn, who was supposed to be a leading pro-Palestinian figure. He is proved to be very weak. By the way, it is very possible that a lot of the things that we see is falling into many traps that are set to him by Jews within his party, and this is something that people have to understand. I think that it's very important to talk about it because you are going to go through a very similar conflict with Bernie Sanders.
Or Donald Trump if he comes out on top on the Republican side.
I'm not talking about who is going to be the president. Whoever will come on top in each of the parties will have to deal with this Jewish lobby. These are the strongest people on the land, but especially Bernie Sanders is supposed to be progressive and peace lover and so on and so on and so on. And it may happen. It may be very disappointing. Although, unlike the case of Jeremy Corbyn, the Jews seem very happy with Bernie Sanders due to the fact that he is a Jew who confessed to be a pro-Zionist. He even spent some time in a kibbutz when he was young, and so on and so on and so on. What is happening with Jeremy Corbyn is fascinating because Jeremy Corbyn takes a lot of flack from the Jews in this country because he has been a supporter of the Palestinians for, I may even say, his entire political career. He was the patron of the Palestinian Solidarity campaign, and so on and so on and so on. So what happened? He get a lot of pressure from the Jews and from people who kind of mainstream laborers, and he is pushed to the labor radical left, to the most kind of lefty Trotskyite within the Labor Party. And guess what? This flank of the Labor Party is a little Israel. It's totally dominated by the Jews. So if you try to summarize what really happened here, he is pushed by the Jewish lobby to the hardcore British left, just to find out that the hardcore British left is also dominated by the same people. This is the story. This is the story that we see.
Well, hold on. We're going to continue this story in a moment because we're going to run out of time. But it is fascinating. We'll pick up right where we left off with that. There is no escape route for the people, no matter who they go to get out of this. They fall into another trap. We'll be right back with Gilad Atzmon right after this.
Are you too clean for your own good? According to new research, being too conscientious about dirt and germs could actually make you sick. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back with some antibacterial products you might want to avoid.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
A University of Michigan study suggests that antibacterial soaps and hand sanitizers could make your family sick. Many contain the chemical triclosan, an antimicrobial. Young people with higher levels of triclosan in their systems are more likely to be diagnosed with allergies and hay fever. Scientists believe the chemical may interfere with the body's immune system by mimicking or affecting human hormones. Triclosan may also prevent kids from dealing with everyday germs so they don't develop a natural immunity to them. So if you want a healthy clean, skip the antibacterial products and wash up with good old-fashioned soap and water. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
Looking for some truth? You found it. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back. Tom Kiley, INN World Report Radio. We're here with Gilad Atzmon. He's up late. We appreciate it. He's in London. Let's get right back to it. We're talking about a couple of issues. Right now we're starting off with, or we're going to get to it anyway, but the background is the disappointment, the control of the political process in the entire developed world by oligarchs. And in this case, an example of it is by Israeli or pro-Zionist oligarchs. And that's with the blocking of the BDS movement. We'll get to that in a moment. But we're talking first about Jeremy Corbyn, right? And the disappointment.
But when we get to the BDS, you will find out. I just published something, and I'm going to upset a lot of people. I really love upsetting. You know, I made it into a profession. I make a living out of it. And
I know you, Gilad. If there's somebody who you're not upsetting, even if they're a close friend, you go home, you scratch your head, and you figure out, how can I upset that person?
You know, what did I do wrong? You know, what? Yeah, but I'm. You know, we can move on to it. There is nothing to say about Corbyn. You know, I still hope that because you know, when it comes to Corbyn, it is also very possible that they set a lot of traps around him, and he's not sophisticated enough to avoid them. You have to understand that, you know, his advisors are, you know, banal leftists, you know, with zero experience in dealing with this kind of difficulties. You know, they're not business people who survived tough competition. They're basically politicians who did really nothing in their life. It's quite pathetic. Anyway, let's.
But one thing before we move on, I have a question. You spoke about some labor kids at Oxford University who had to quit their position because they talked about people as being Zios. Is that what you said?
Yeah, apparently this is what they write in the press, and the biggest issue with them is that they decided to celebrate the Israel Apartheid Week, which is
right. But you said that there's two different issues there, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of. I think we got to the bottom of one of them. So, which came first, the attack on them for saying Zios, or the attack on them for going to the week, or was the Zio thing just an excuse for the other?
I don't know the chronology. I think that they went for them for saying deciding to subscribe to this. Apartheid Week, and then the Jewish Society in the university published today the list of the nasty things that they are doing, and one of them was talking about the Jewish lobby. You know, I think that they even said the Zionist lobby. So we have a Jewish lobby that is operating here, and Oxford University students who are supposed to lead this country into the future are not even allowed to engage in a criticism of the most forceful lobby. I think that.
Well, wait, I brought it up for a specific reason. To refer to somebody as a Zio,
you're right.
I find nothing wrong with that if you're talking about a Zionist. What's the problem with that?
More than that, you know, Jews who declare to be Zionists should be proud to be referred as to refer to as Zionist or Zionist.
And you know what? And even more than that, I'll trump you. You just trump me. I'm going to trump you right back. It is a fine and fair distinction to make. Okay? Sure. Because it is not anti-Semitic. It doesn't fall into the trap that the Zionists and the anti-Semites want you to fall into, and that is to lump all people who say they're Jewish together as the Jews, when actually...
Okay, but listen, this is something that is very, very interesting. And when it comes to Jews, when Jews meet each other, they're very happy to identify themselves as Jews. In different occasions, if you apply to a New York law firm, you may make sure that they know that you are a Jew because it comes with some imaginary credentials. However, if you would refer to the same person, you tell him, you are a Jew, aren't you? It would be offended. Now, we have to look into these unique predicates that are very offensive when they are attributed to someone, yet when self-attributed, there are reason for to be cheerful or pride or so on. It is very, very unique. It is very, very unique. For instance, black. Yeah. As far as I am aware, maybe I'm wrong here, but people are happy to identify as black or as women, are not offended when they are regarded as women or as black by others. People are happy to be Germans and are not offended when they are called Germans by others. If I call you American, Tom, you're an American, aren't you? You won't be.
I am deeply offended by that.
By the way, some people would be offended because
not only that, but you are an anti-American for calling me American. How's that?
Okay, so you understand there is an issue there, and we have to understand what it means. Now, the fact that some Jews are offended, or even all Jews are offended, or I don't know, by being called as Zios, is a very positive development. It means that they start to understand how faulty the Zionist movement is and how dangerous it is, which is a positive development, I must admit.
Well, it's also, I mean, that's a whole topic, and we've spoken about it with you. We've had, Allison Weir on the program now, and it is a really slippery slope. Before the Holocaust, it was what? God said we should have Palestine, right? And then, and this is godless people saying that, basically almost communists, they're atheists. And then when the Holocaust comes, we should have Palestine because the Europeans owe it to us. Right? Who cares that there's people on there? It just, next year it'll be something else, maybe. I don't know. But in any case, the fact to me, if a person is a Zionist, I have no problem. That's why I'm starting to. I don't say neocon. I don't say neocon anymore. I say Ziocon because I have never seen a neocon yet who is not also an ardent Zionist.
Exactly, you're totally right, and this is exactly what I wrote in my paper about it. You are complaining that they call you a Zio, and they don't call you a Jew. Or, some people use this word kaik or whatever that I understand is offensive in spite of the fact that it is actually the way, if I understand it correctly, the German Jews used to call the Ostjuden, the Eastern European Jews, they call you after, they label you as subscribers to a clear Jewish political most popular school of thought. Now,
which you are a subscriber to?
They are definitely, and anyway, it is very interesting. Now, the BDS
boycott, divestiture, and sanctions movement.
Yeah, what happened in the last few days? We have learned.
Hold on, Gilad, because we got 20 seconds left, so I don't want you to get started. We're going to be back with Gilad Atzmon. I asked him to come on to the show tonight to speak about what we're just now ready to speak about. We sort of did a setup here. And we're going to talk about this crazy ruling in England now that they're pushing that they're not allowing people to boycott Israel and Israeli products. Very, very interesting. Right back with them just after this.
Easy.
Friends, welcome back. Alvin Lee, the late Alvin Lee, great rock and roll guitarist in his prime there, I think, at Woodstock. And we've got the Alvin Lee of philosophical discourse when it comes to Zionism and Judaism, and that would be Gilad Atzmon. And he's with us right now. We're talking about this. You are the Alvin Lee of, you're a rock star when it comes to this stuff. We're talking about this crazy ruling in England. We were talking before the break a little bit about, well, actually, we're just starting to get to the heart of the matter. This BDS movement, You used to be able to vote, and if the majority had their way, then what they wanted would be enacted. That's gone. You used to be able to go out on the streets. There was 1 million plus people on the streets of London twice to try to shut down the war in Iraq. That didn't happen. At least you have your pound or your dollar to vote with, and you could try to affect change that way. And now that's not allowed anymore either, at least in England when it comes to the BDS movement. Why don't you tell us about this?
Yeah, so we learned in the last 2 days that the British government has issued a new directive preventing public entities, universities, student unions, and so on, from boycotting Israeli product. It means that if you would call for a boycott of any Israeli product, you may subject to legal action. Now, this is very unusual. But I must admit that as much as I'm supporting every possible measure against Israel, I'm really, really, really excited by it, because there is nothing that thrills me more than Jewish power manifest itself in the open. I understand it is. We don't believe that Cameron woke up in the morning yesterday and said, "What can I do for Britain?" And he said, "Oh, I better come up with this ruling against BDS, against boycott, divestment, sanction of Israel." He was obviously under severe pressure by the Jewish lobby. And this is very, very interesting. And why it is so interesting? Because Jewish power is exactly the one thing the BDS doesn't touch. And why the BDS doesn't touch Jewish power? Because BDS, that started as a Palestinian movement, very quickly became an extension of Jewish left. The Jewish left, Jews, there is nothing they love more than boycotts. Jews, there is the famous joke, how many synagogues do you need in a village with one Jew? 2, one to go to and another one to boycott. Yeah.
Well, look, yeah, and I just, it's interesting in the commentary or the comment section of these articles. There's something in the British press I'm reading.
Yeah.
And some jerk writes about commenting about this very issue, boycotting. The Jews never boycott anybody, and everybody. No, that's not true. The Jews boycott the Germans.
Jews boycott Spinoza. If you look at the 4 or 5 most important Jews, who comes first? Christ. Who comes second? Spinoza. Who comes third? Marx. So all those the greatest.
And then who comes fourth? Einstein.
Maybe. I don't know. He was kind of. I think that we have to give Einstein the credit for dragging us into the Cold War. I don't think that he was a great humanist. Definitely not. But anyway,
didn't he turn down the offer to become the president of Israel because he didn't like it?
But first he has to do something to appease the people he slaughtered in Hiroshima and Nagasaki before anything else. I think he was theoretically behind it, but he wasn't actually behind the making it. No. There is something that you are missing here. Yeah. Einstein was initiated this project by sending a very important letter to Roosevelt in the early stage of the war. He's the guy that basically led to the formation of the Manhattan Project. He wasn't alone, but he was a major voice. Okay.
And I'm going to guess. Let me guess. His motivation was, if you don't hurry up and get it, the Germans will get it first. Correct?
By the way, I cannot confirm it, but because I didn't see the source myself. But there is a story that he was very upset when he realized that it was used against the Japanese, because according to his plan, it was meant for the Germans. So we should feel sorry for him. But Anyway, what I'm saying, I'm definitely not sure that Einstein was a humanist. If you want, I can send you. You can share it with your.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the most impactful, not necessarily the most humanistic.
I meant the most important Jewish humanist. So we talk about Christ, about
that's clear. Yes, absolutely.
About Marx, Yehudi Menuhin, maybe. and so on and so on.
Yoav Shamir.
I'm going to meet him in a few days, by the way.
Okay.
And these are all people who were dissenters. Christ was a dissenter, was subject to boycott. The boycott didn't work. They nailed him to the wood. Spinoza was definitely subject to boycott, to cherem, they call it excommunication. So Jews really, really, really love this boycott. Now, what happened is that the BDS was kind of within days after its formation in 2005, became a Jewish movement, and it was a genius move on the Jewish leftist part. And why? Because if 10 or 15 years ago we were debating about the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state, once BDS was formed and became a Jewish discourse, this debate whether Israel has the right to exist changed into whether we have the right to BDS. So what we have is two Jews or two Jewish camps fighting between themselves about this internal Jewish issue, whether we have the right to BDS. Now, what is amazing, I looked into it today. I knew that I'm going to meet you in the kind of midnight for me. So I found Middle East Monitor. Middle East Monitor is kind of, I think that it's British, and it's, I don't know who stands behind it, but they're supposed to report about Palestine and so on and so on and so on. I read a report about this British new ruling or new bill. There was not even a single word about Palestine. I'm reading to you something from this paper. Amongst those who have objected to the plans, this is a quote, were British Jews from various organizations who defended the BDS movement as a weapon of moral persuasion, deploying a tactic frequently used by powerless people in their opposition to racism, slavery, and oppression. So it's already the opposition to the British government is in itself Jewish. And if this wasn't enough, they also give you they pepper it with some Jewish name, Moshe Chaim Yosef, signed by Jacqueline Rose of Independent Jewish Voice, Michael Kalmanovich. It's a very typical Pakistani name. No, it's not Pakistani. Michael Kalmanovich of the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network.
A nice Irish name.
And Julia Bard of the Jewish Socialist Group, the letter for the state, blah, 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 anti-Semitism, blah, 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 blah. So there is not a word about Palestine. It's all the bad Jews, Zionists, who push the government, and now the good Jews who push the government from the other side. Once again, it's the same story of Corbyn. We have a huge issue. We have a huge scandal in Palestine. What is happening there? Every few months we see the IDF walking over, Gaza, smashing it to pieces. We have indiscriminate killing on a daily basis. We have executions in the streets on a daily basis. And what we encounter it with an internal Jewish debate where the Palestinians are not even involved or even mentioned.
Or even invited.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is really something, and it's we're coming up on the top of the hour break, and we're going to get to the specifics. But Gilad, tell me a couple of things. I'll shoot you a few questions. Does this anti-boycott law apply to everybody, or is it specifically tailored to Israel?
No, definitely Israel.
They want to boycott Russia, right? And they want to, sanction Russia and Iran and all this stuff. Is it saying that anybody?
It's not very interesting because we don't have. In the case of Russia, we have some British politicians that don't like Putin, and they probably have their own reasoning behind it. But
so listen, we got to go. Hold on, we got to go on break. So sanctioning Russia is no problem. Sanctioning Israel, you're in a lot of trouble because 0.5% of the population, not even one, doesn't like it. We'll be right back with you right after this. All right, good friends, welcome back. Hour number 2 just getting underway here on our Thursday night program. Tom Kiley here, INN World Report Radio. Now, fortunately, in the last few years, the cataracts have come off of a lot of people's eyes, and we're able to see much more clearly and discuss with much more forthrightness the terrible, terrible Palestine-Israel problem. Okay, that part of the world that was just taken from the poor people that lived there under various excuses. God said we could do it. You owe it to us because of the Holocaust, none of which had anything to do with the people who lived there. And that was bad enough. But since then, the people in that land have been terribly persecuted. Many of them have been pushed out of the country, and the rest of them are being pushed out in an absolutely brutal fashion. And, people are finally saying enough is enough, and probably should have said so a great long time ago. By the way, on that subject, Gilad, in the British Foreign Office and here in the U.S., there was a lot of people who thought this was a bad idea way back in the beginning, weren't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they all got pushed out.
Yeah, man. When you look at the history of Britain, Zionism, the approach to Jews, this British government was suffocated with Jew haters. Even Churchill was famous with some statements. What did they do in order to handle it? They gave Zionist Jew, Martin Gilbert, they made Martin Gilbert into his biographer. They let the Jew deal with these issues, and it was resolved. One of the most fascinating things, in America and Britain, is at the time of World War II, and actually way before, since 33, 36, America and Britain blocked and, closed its gates to Jews escaping from Europe.
Sure, the St. Louis, right?
This is only one case, people who try to do it de facto to come to America. It just didn't work. And, instead of dealing with its past and taking responsibility for what the Jews insist in their history, kind of what they call the Holocaust, the destruction of the European Jews, Americans build Holocaust museums, and this most crucial part, the American complicity, British complicity, is not there in any of these museums, not in Britain, not in America.
Yeah, that's right. I happen to know a lot about that. There's a great writer. If you're not familiar with his work, everybody listening, I suggest that you take a look at it. Christopher Higgins. He teaches journalism, I believe, at American University in Washington, D.C., and he's written a lot of good books. Two of them in particular I've read, but there's one called The Splendid Blonde Beast, which is a reference to Nietzsche, or Nietzsche, however you want to say it. And Nietzsche. That's a phrase that Nietzsche had for these barbaric oligarchs who would go out there and thin the population down, and they didn't have any romantic visions of humanism. They were able to be strong and lead people and kill people, and then they'd come home and wash the blood off and have a good meal with the family, and everybody would love them and stuff. That was the title of his book, and it was a study of the Armenian and Jewish Holocausts, between World War II. It's very, very interesting how he reports about how the Dulles brothers were involved and people like that. And they actually discounted the reports coming in from Europe. They buried them. They changed them about this Holocaust that was going on there. They didn't want to hear about it. In the U.S. State Department.
Yeah. It's hardly a surprise. Because, history, as I mentioned many times, probably on this program as well, history hardly tells us what really happened. What it does instead, it is there to conceal the shame.
History is his story, the guy who won, and it's not there just to conceal shame, because these bastards have no shame, Gilad. You assume it's there so that they can commit the same atrocities over and over again. So they don't want you to know about what they do.
History doesn't belong to oligarchs. American history belongs to you. It's your heritage. The history of the Jews, in spite of the fact that I'm not a Jew anymore, the history of the Jews somehow belongs to me, as much as it belongs to you.
I agree, but I'm not the one who has the money to pay for the history books. The oligarchs do. And if you want a job, and if you want to be in the publishing business, and if you want to have a job at a newspaper like the New York Times, you have to sing the story the way they want it sung. Now, this is a little bit different now in the age of self-publishing, in the age of the internet, in the age of what we're doing right now. But heretofore, I think it's been the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the
I don't think that it is just a matter money or who is ruling. I think that we all have a tendency, you can look at your own history. Your first attempt to date a girl and she didn't appear or took the piss, how the English would say, I don't know what, she mocked you or whatever. We have, all of us, we all have some embarrassing things that wouldn't appear in our biographies. All right? Now, the way, don't you?
No, that's not the point. The point is if you cared about, let me debate with you here, okay? If what you say is true, then why didn't that embarrassing act have any restraint on you when you were in the war? You don't care about being embarrassed during a war. You don't care about who you kill. You may not want to talk about it afterwards, but if you had... Who told me what?
Who told me what? You don't care who you kill. Who
told me what happened is what told me. The fact that it happened.
So I tell you, if you are a Marines and you happen by mistake to enter a house and it's a battle and you fear for your life, you are fearful and you are panicking and you throw a grenade and then you break the door and enter into the house and shoot all over the place. You realize that you just smashed, a nursery with 25 kids and they're all dead. This is your shame. You're not an oligarch. And
but the Marines don't write the history books. They're even lucky to read them.
I'm trying to take you farther now. Please listen. All right? You have shame, yes? You have shame on you. And if nobody saw it, you are the only one who knows it. You may try to conceal it. You may your life can be destroyed and so on and so on and so on. You may start to pee in the night. You may be traumatized by your own action. And this is the concealment. And it will take a very, very good psychologist to get you out of it and to give you your life back. Now, the job of the real historian is exactly similar to the job of a great psychoanalyst. It is to unveil the shame and to teach us how to deal with it. Now, even if it is an oligarch who wrote the history book, even if it is Martin Gilbert, the Zionist Jew, who is the Churchill biographer, we need good psychoanalysts, historians, that remove the crap that was inflicted on us by Gilbert or other historians or Timothy Snyder, and let us understand who we are, where we come from, for real. And it is exactly the same dynamic that works on you, the person, and on the rest of us as a collective.
Yeah, no, I do understand, but where we disagree here is that there is no shame on the case of the perpetrators, the people who did the bombing of the German cities and incinerated all of those people. Okay, there was no shame on their part.
What do you mean? You think that the pilots?
I'm not talking about the pilots. It was not their decision to do it. I'm talking about the oligarchs, the policymakers above them.
But this is, I'll tell you a story. Okay, the story that will shock you.
Churchill, your buddy Churchill.
Listen,
he decided.
I give you a beautiful story. I play in a village here in Britain. I play there once a year. I hope that I'm not going to get into trouble for telling you this story. In the early stage, I didn't really realize who was living in this village, and I saw a general with RAF wings on his dash. I realized that he was a pilot general, but I didn't recognize the face, and I asked, who is this? Now the place is called Goring on the Thames, yeah. And I thought, is it Goring on Thames or is it Goering? Because Goering was obviously a pilot. And they told me, oh no, this is not Goering. I was on stage. People corrected me on stage and said, this is not Goering, and this is Bomber Harris. It's Bomber Harris. Yeah?
He's still alive? He's still alive, Bomber Harris?
No, definitely not. It was just kind of a kind of a picture.
Yeah, Bomber Harris was the guy in charge of the British strategic bombing effort. I think he was from Rhodesia or something. Yeah.
And he's Dresden and so on and so on. And a lot of people, and I said something that I shouldn't have said. Doesn't matter what it was. And people were very, very upset there. And I couldn't return to the club for the next 7-8 years. And when I came back, I had to promise that I would never mention it again. All right. And it became kind of a joke, because I'm a funny guy. Now, what that, Bomber Harris was a soldier. He happened to be a soldier who killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people. Yeah. Genocidal. But the people in his village, and many of them his family, carried this story and this shame, and they're locked with it, The nature of modern warfare, and this will change now, by the way, thanks to drones and so on, is similar. It doesn't matter if it's Obama or Churchill or Bibi Netanyahu or Putin who gives the order, yeah? And
listen, we got the order. We got to stop right now. We'll be right back with you live.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
Let's get right back to it. That was a little bit of a diversion, Gilad. Let's get back because we're going to start running out of time. And, you and I can obviously talk for a very, very long time. And I enjoy it when we do so. Hopefully the audience finds it interesting as well. But if I can draw us back a little bit, let's finish up. So now there is the specific law in England. Is it passed yet? Is it going to be passed?
I don't know. I didn't manage to follow where it stands. I guess that if the government wants to pass it, they have the majority. It's a majority, it's a strong government. They will be able to pass it. This is a minor issue because anyway, we know that the trade between Israel and Britain, for instance, is growing all the time. So the BDS is just something that makes a few Jews feel, unfortunately, I feel.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think it may not have a large economic impact, but it has certainly a very big psychological one, and I think that's what they're really fighting against.
This is the thing. This is the thing. We have also a problem here on that front. BDS was was designed to make the Jews or the Israelis feel threatened and isolated and unpopular and so on and so on and so on. And it achieved the complete opposite. It actually united them, and even the dissenters are stuck in a debate within this kind of Jewish ghetto between themselves. So it's actually
look. I look at it a little differently, and I'd like to get your take on that. There's the economic impact, which could be relatively minor, as you point out. There is the impact it's had on the Jewish elites, right and left, and how they've responded to it. But there's a very large population of people out there who are not Zionists, who may be Jewish, who may not be Jewish, who want to participate in that. And I think that's the big battlefield here. Their hearts and minds that it's okay. There's yet another front opened in the war on Zionism.
I agree with you. A lot of people say, as you just suggested, we really don't agree with Israel. We cannot accept it. And we want to do something. We don't want to go to Gaza to fight because it's far and dangerous. All we want to do is to boycott Israeli goods. You tell me that it's from Israel, I don't buy it. Fine, this is completely beautiful. Why? Because now they realize that in Britain, that it is far, far greater than just boycotting Israel. Because now they understand, as I am suggesting for years, that we have to understand what is the Jewish lobby.
Right.
Our lobby of 0.5% of the population.
This is 1/2 of 1%. Is that correct? 1/2 of 1% of the population. That's astounding.
Yeah. And by the way, in your country, it's like 4 times more. In your country, it's like 2% are Jews, and the lobby maybe is like 10 times stronger. So it's quite a serious achievement for the lobby of this small group of people. And people have to understand we are dealing with a lobby that dominates our foreign policy and makes Britain into a non-ethical country.
What about in France, by the way? I know that you go there all the time. Alan Sorel, Dieudonné. What's the population there? What's the numbers there?
In France, I think that the Jews are around 1%. You can check it out in a second.
Wow.
But it is bigger. It is bigger than...
So twice as much of a percentage as in England, but half again as much of a percentage as in the United States.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly. And the lobby there is huge. One of the dominant so-called intellectuals in Bernard-Henri Lévy, who proudly said, as a Jew, I liberated Libya. We know what is the situation in Libya. Mm-hmm. They managed to push France into one battle after another. It's quite devastating.
And they're supposedly getting pushback now from ISIS as well.
And in France, we start to see that they're really getting, they are now complaining about anti-Semitism and so on and so on. So many of them are moving back moving to Israel and so on and celebrating their symptoms.
Well, you know what? It doesn't seem. It seems a lot less to do with the numbers of people because, relatively speaking, that's a very small percentage of the population. It seems a lot more to do whether there's 2 Zionists left in France or 2,000 or 200,000 or 2 million. That's the point. Seems to be the greater population and their ability to discuss the problem of Palestine honestly and openly and forthrightly. That seems to be the big battlefront here. It's obviously not a numbers game with population.
No, definitely not. I think, and this is something very interesting because as you've been in my talk on Jewish elite. When it comes, to Jewish politics, to Zionism, to dissent, we are dealing with a tiny percentage of the Jews, and I'm referring to Jewish elite. A guy like George Soros, who funds most of the so-called progressive organizations around the world, is pretty independent or totally independent of the rest of the Jews, So when he flinked a disaster on a country, when he fiddles with its monetary system or like Greece,
like he tried to do in England. He tried to do it in England some years back.
It didn't try. It did. He himself alone can bring a Holocaust on the entire Jewish population in that country.
You mean in retaliation?
Yeah, for sure. Sure. And I think I'm visiting a lot in Turkey, and the government blame Soros for what they see as kind of LGBT protest and so on. Whether it is true or not, I can't judge because I don't have the kind of access.
Meanwhile, Turkey's been in bed with Israel now for quite some time, and all that stuff. The Mavi Mara,
Yeah, for sure. But this is a different issue. Turkey is a complicated topic, and it deserves a kind of more than a program, and we will need another.
We'll do that. Listen, we'll do that. We're heading back toward break again. We got about 1 minute before the music starts. So suffice it to say, when we come back, we got 2 more segments in the show. I would like to talk about the whole LGBT political correct. You write about identity politics and you write about all this stuff. And it's really this LGBT or this transgender, I should say, issue is really starting to come to the forefront of a lot of people's consciousnesses. It's been around for a while, but it hasn't been out in your face. There's laws being changed now, created pro and con in this country. And it's very unusual. The very definition of what a man is and what a woman is being challenged and rewritten as we speak.
Yeah. This is a very interesting topic. We have, when we deal with these topics, we have to differentiate between the sexual identity and political identity. Obviously, when it comes to sexual matter, biological matters, I'm not an expert. I was born a man, and I never considered changing it. But when it comes to, it may happen. I'm still young. But but when it comes to politics, to the identity politics, to politics that is defined by biology,
which is where we were going to return as soon as we get back with Gilad Atzmon.
Foot-in-mouth syndrome. We've all been there. Whether you're on the giving end or the receiving end of a hurtful comment, words are hard to take back. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back in a moment with some things that should never roll off your tongue.
Your search engine is watching you, recording all your searches and creating a massive database of your personal information. That's creepy, but it doesn't have to be that way. Startpage.com is the world's most private search engine. Startpage doesn't store your IP address, make a record of your searches, or use tracking cookies, and they're third-party certified. If you don't like Big Brother spying on you, start over with Startpage. Great search results and total privacy. Startpage.com, the world's most private search engine.
In social situations, there are some things you should never say. These top my list. When is the baby due? Never say this to a woman. Imagine the embarrassment if she simply gained a few pounds. Don't talk baby unless she brings it up. You look good for your age, or you look great after losing all that weight, are indirect insults. Instead, just say, you look terrific. What's your secret? Finally, no matter how bad someone looks, never say, you look awful. That'll just make the person feel worse. Instead, say, how are things going? If they want to talk, that'll open the door. And those are today's tips for taming your tongue. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
Chemtrails. You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at logosradionetwork.com.
All right, good friends, welcome back. Now we're having, as you can probably tell, a very interesting conversation with Gilad Atzmon. We are exploring, as we like to do all the time on this program, and we like to try to exercise a certain amount of freedom of thought and expression to do that, which, we are doing, no question about it. I would not have Gilad on my program if he was, in my opinion, an anti-Semite, although I may have an anti-Semite on my program someday to debate with them and let them fall on their face or, show me something that I'm missing, which I don't think they could do. But that's not the case. In the meantime, Gilad, one of the things that and by the way, friends, if you have not gone by there, you might want to, Gilad.uk, GILAD.uk.co is his website. And
okay, sorry.
Did I do that wrong? Is it
No. I just thought about what you said about anti-Semite. What would make one into a proper anti-Semite?
Well, I don't know. You have to ask the people who hurl that, because it seems to change over time.
This is the thing. I, in my entire life, and I meet quite a lot of people and interviewed by quite a lot of people and did a lot of research into it. I've never come across any person who opposed Jews for being Jews, and I'm talking about even people like David Duke. David Duke would have a lot of reasons why he opposed Jews, and I can agree with him or not agree with him. He would talk about race, and I actually don't think that we are dealing with race and so on. But there are no people who oppose Jews for being Jews. All the people who oppose Jews in contemporary politics and discourse always oppose Jews for reasons to do with politics, with Jewish racism, and so on.
Yeah, I understand that. I get that. For me, that's not the issue. The issue is that they are insistent on lumping all Jews together. therefore. And that's where my issue is.
By the way,
yeah.
who lumps all Jews together? Can you?
Anti-Semites that talk to me, the Jews, period, the end. They don't care if it's religious, if it's irreligious, if it's Israeli, not Israeli, if they're Sardinian Jews, or it's the Jews. Every single one of them are all on the same page with this stuff. And to me, that's what anti-Semitism is about.
I now understand your point. But there is something that you have to bear in mind. I know that you don't want to talk about it, but there is something that you have to bear in mind. There is an entity that calls itself the Jewish state.
Right.
Yeah. And this entity is supported by the vast majority of Jews. It is supported by all Jewish political institutions in the world. Yeah. And when people
I don't care if there's one Jew in the world who doesn't support that, then I cannot talk about the Jews, number one. Number two, there's a substantial amount of profound Jews, more actual Jews, if you ask me, who are against that state. And number three, I would say the vast majority of what we call the Jews in the world, whether they're religious, whether they think they're religious and they're not, and whether they're atheistic, who support the concept of Israel, that's even done with an emotional gun held to their head. Okay,
no, it's not that you are wrong. You are right, and I'm sure that there is 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 12 or even 1,000 to 2,000 Jews who do not support Israel and do not care. I believe that the people who speak about the Jews, which is a very problematic, category, because it's a category that goes beyond race, it goes beyond nationalism, it goes beyond religion. It's not a religious category. Most Jews are not religious. It's not a racial category because Jews don't form a race. It's not a nationalist category, but because most Jews don't live within the borders of the imaginary Jewish nation, i.e. Israel. It's a very problematic category, but this is the most important thing here. It is designed to be confusing in order to dismantle your ability to criticize this identity. Do you understand what I'm telling now? This is the crucial issue here.
No, I think that comes. Listen, I agree with you, no question. And why would any group want that? Okay, listen, I'm a philosopher like you. Go on, let me answer the question, and then you can tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. In my view of the world, the groups who want that that tendency increases when you have a small group with an inordinate amount of power. They don't want to have attention focused on them. They don't want to have the discussion focused on them. So this kind of thing happens when, what are you talking about? And I have lefty, liberal New York Jews who are friends of mine who agree with me on so many things, and we get to certain things and say, oh, come on, there's only a handful of Jews in the world. How can they run the world? That sort of thing. I don't say that they run the world. And this is the knee-jerk reaction to any particular problem that I might want to focus on, like Palestine or something.
For sure. Listen, I have myself sorted this issue, I do admit in the open that the Jewish elite is astonishingly forceful. Yeah.
First on the Jews, and then on other people.
For sure. So I'm not one of I don't talk about the Jews, but I understand why people make this mistake. They make this mistake because this concept is designed to be confusing, and people are indeed confused about it for a reason. Anyway, you wanted to talk about LGBT.
Yeah, I actually, what's your schedule like? We'll have to have you back on next week because, we opened up a couple of different very interesting categories here and we didn't finish it, but I did want to touch on this whole LGBT thing. We only have a few minutes left in this segment. And the reason I say that is because, one of your great friends, Amy Goodman, and I sent you this link today. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. She just had this segment on about transgenderism, and she was shocked, let me tell you, because the state of South Dakota is having the audacity of coming up with a law that says the girls' bathroom and the girls' locker room and the boys' bathroom and the boys' locker room are for boys, and the girls' bathroom and the girls' locker room are for girls. And that means if you have a girl's chromosomes or if you have a boy's chromosomes. And she is just all over this thing. She had an attorney on. I think the attorney works for the American Civil Liberties Union, named Strangio or something. It was a very strange name. And this was a woman who's trying to pass as the term as a man. She's obviously had some kind of hormone therapy. She's got a little mustache going and that sort of thing. And they approach this discussion from the given fact that sex is determined by the intent of the being and not anything that has to do with physicality. And I was just I had to send it to you. And I know this is an issue you talk about, not only the issue itself, but also people like Amy Goodman. So we have about who is pushing this thing. And I think she's making a lot of money off it, too, because he's asking for money. So we have 1 minute before the break. You can start talking. I'm going to have to cut you off if it doesn't go back and forth. But then I'd like to finish up the last segment talking about that. Go.
As I mentioned to you many times before, and when it comes to fascism, for instance, I'm not kind of that concerned about fascism. The idea of national and socialism, it doesn't sound to me that bad idea that people are patriotic and they want to live in equality. When it comes to German National Socialism, we saw something different. At a certain stage, it evolved into Hitlerism, and Hitlerism was the problem. What was the problem with Hitlerism? That instead of being politics of the German people, we started to talk about biology. Some people were not qualified to be Germans because they had issues with biology.
All right, we got to go on break. Okay, we'll be right back with you.
Increase in mental functioning.
If it keeps on raining, the levee's going to break. So many things in our society, the straws are being added on, and the one that's going to break the camel's back is going to be there real soon, if not already. And that's one of the reasons I play that song as a bumper. But we're speaking with Gilad Atzmon. It's been, I think, a rather interesting evening so far. Gilad, we still didn't get to a couple of things, and we only have one segment. We're going to try to do it justice. But what's your schedule like next week? Can you come back on?
Let me see.
Tuesday or Thursday? If I had the music
on Tuesday, I have a concert.
Okay.
And on Thursday, I have a session. I should be free in the evening.
Very good. So tentatively, a week from tonight, we'll continue. But let's just get back to it. Gilad, this whole LGBT thing, particularly with the trans, this is not a situation where straight white people are all upset. This is a situation.
Okay, sorry, I just to finish the line of thought from before.
Sure. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It will make it clear to you where I want to go with it.
Yeah.
Now, what happened is that the left and the progressives were supposed to unite us together against the bad guys, the oligarch, the capital, the capital, the capitalists, or whatever you want to call them, have actually adopted the most embarrassing chapter in National Socialism, or let's say fascism. They adopted the Hitlerian ingredient. They actually do divide us by biology. And this is exactly what identity politics is. We took society and we start to cut it into segments of biology. When you start to talk as a black, as a lesbian, as a gay, as a Jew, as a Hispanic, we are basically divided into segments, and instead of being all united to find our common denominator, not necessarily the lowest one, we are actually engaged in endless sectarian wars. Now, the left...
Wait. You can't just go now with a bombshell like that. I have two things to say about that. Okay? Interestingly, you've stimulated some thought, and I'm going to have to think about this, and I'll write you about it. But number one, traditionally, it is the right who has been accused of that. It is the right who has been accused of sectarianism, divide and conquer, wedge issues, religious issues, and that's whereas the left is supposed to be inclusive. And now you're right. It's the left that's doing it.
Exactly.
Number one.
Now,
number two. Wait. Number two. You're dead wrong when you say biology. Okay, I wish it were biology, because biology is cut and dried. It's pure and simple. You have male chromosomes or you have female chromosomes. It is much worse than that. Wait. It is much worse than that. It is up into psychological territory now, where they are asserting that your sex is whatever psychologically you feel more comfortable with, regardless of your physical body.
Listen.
Regardless of your biology.
This is okay. Let's be very clear. This deserves a discussion with some top evolutionary biologists. And why? Because many biologists will argue that if you are born, let's say, a male, but you insist that you are actually a woman, or want to live the life of a woman, and vice versa, it is not just a psychological apparatus that is completely detached from your physics. There is something in your genes, in your biology, in your very specific biology.
Yeah, okay, I hear you.
Okay.
No, wait. No, it's not okay. Hold on. That is a strict materialist point of view, okay? And, believe it or not, I think there is some basis for that with some of these people. There's a spectrum. Okay, where on one end of that spectrum, it is perhaps entirely biologically driven. And on the other end of the spectrum,
discussion between the two of us. If you want to deal with it, this is a very interesting question.
No, I'm not necessarily. I'm not dealing with it. I'm just. But one second, please.
I'm not a biologist. You see what
All right, hold on. I understand, but you don't have to be. You're a philosopher, and so am I. So I'm going to put an overarching philosophical point on it. And you're right. We can talk with biologists about it. However, philosophically, logically speaking, there is a spectrum of people. On one end of that spectrum, it is entirely physiologically driven. Yes, there's such things as hermaphrodites. There's no question. That's a physical condition. On the other end, it's totally psychological. Daddy wanted a boy and he had 3 girls, and you're going to be the boy now, and you're going to learn how to fix cars and play soccer and all that sort of thing. It's a spectrum. Okay. I think the ones where it is predominantly physiologically driven are very relatively small.
Fine. I don't want to go into this topic. What I'm saying it is largely biological. But even if it is not biological, as you are mentioning now, it's like, let's say that a certain percent of those who call themselves transgender or whatever are driven totally. There is no material driving
physicality to it.
Physicality to it. It's totally psychological. It doesn't really matter for the argument, because what I'm talking about is the splicing of society into margins, and because this is the condition that the bankrupt left prefer to deal with. Why do they prefer to deal with? And it's not just the left; it's left as well as Jewish elite. Now there is reasoning behind it. What is the reasoning? While the traditional old left, as you mentioned in a way 10 minutes ago, wanted or claimed that it wanted to unite us, and the ideology was very clear. We are together against the bad guys. Left always felt frustrated by the fact that at the end of the day, working class, the working people, never supported the left. They always supported the right. And this is easy to explain. The left has very little to offer. The flag comes with a lot of content. Yeah, if you are carrying the American flag, you've been in Normandy, you landed on the moon, you won wars, and so on and so on. The left has very little. All these kind of unions, it's too complicated. It's a system. It's almost a religion. You have to take a lot, and you get very little in return.
Which, by the way, Gilad, if I may, which is very counterintuitive, because it takes a village, right? Hillary Clinton and others, and I happen to agree with this concept that society is about the whole, providing the parts with a greater life than they could do individually. Okay, yet they want to trash that and make the whole damn world, and not national countries and groups. So yes, you're right. They're hoisted by their own petard.
Yeah. So now the issue here is that Jews also have an issue with the unification of or possible unity of working people, because it is always the working class that went for them. In the case of Germany, in the case of Ukraine, in the pogroms, the peasants. And the idea...
I'm sorry, it was the case of the working people who always what?
Went for the Jews,
went against the Jews.
Went against the Jews, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And the idea of breaking the working class, the working people, into margins, into identities, serve both Jews and left. And this is the core of the bond.
But it serves elites too, doesn't it? To really destroy the power of the workforce and the working people.
By the way, you are right here. And now, when you look at it, you have to decide for yourself. Maybe you can understand why you have many American presidents, Democratic American presidents, yet your Congress and Senate are controlled by the Republicans. This may be the source of power of these two different kind of elite that is local and national. It is a very, very
global
or global for sure. You understand? Yeah. This is a very interesting. It deserve
its own show, and that's why we're going to have you back on Thursday night, because we only have about a minute left, and the music's going to start.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is a very, very interesting insight, actually.
I think it's a good point with which we're going to stop tonight, and we'll pick up again on Thursday. Gilad, talk to the audience a little bit. The music's going to start, but we can still talk over it. But trust me, we only have about 30 seconds or so. Tell everybody about what you're doing musically these days. I see you've got some Blockheads sessions coming up.
Yeah, we have some Blockhead sessions. I am finishing a project that I recorded in Indonesia with a Palestinian oud player, incredible guy, Kamal Musalem, and the Indonesian pianist, virtuoso.
Is there a new album in the works?
Yeah. It's like
when's it going to come out?
I think that it will actually come in early 2017.
Okay. And you know what? There's no time left. I'm sorry, Gilad. All right, my friends, Gilad Atzmon, he'll be back again 1 week from tonight. We'll continue.